Man, this sucks being sick. I've been cooped up in bed doing nothing but binge watching all of Disney Plus and doing the same crossword 3 times. There's just nothing else to do. Hold on. I remember watching some sort of review of a board game app from some sort of little YouTuber or something like that. Maybe I'll check it out. Seems like that would give me something to do. Yeah, I'll just quickly head on to the App Store and... $5? What are you, nuts? There goes that option. Looks like I'll be doing my crossword again.
Hello, and welcome to Twister Strudel for another edition of the Digital Board Gamer, where I look at a tabletop board game on a digital platform. Now, before I start, I have a bit of a confession to make. When I did my first review of On Tour, my idea with that video was that I was going to start off with a game that was completely accessible for anyone just entering the hobby to be able to dive right in and be able to give it a whirl, see if it's for them. And part of those requirements is I wanted the game to be completely free. Not because I don't think publishers should be paying people. I mean, they put hard work into these games and they do need to make a profit. But because I wanted to make sure that in every sense of the word, that the game was accessible for anyone wanting to get into it. And I had realized part way through editing my review that the game wasn't actually free, but rather I had gotten it for free due to a deal that was earlier on in the year. So I apologize for that. But to make it up to you, I will be reviewing a game today that will do exactly as I had first intended. So without further ado, let us look into Onitama, a game that is designed by Shinpei Sato, published by Arcane Wonders, with the app developed by Asmodee Digital. Carved into the crags of the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient Japan lies the Shrine of Onitama. It is a space of enlightenment and skill, a site dedicated to the spirits that guide the schools of martial arts across the land. Masters of these schools hazard the journey to Onitama with their most promising disciples to meet within its hallowed walls and to prove their superiority in battle against the others. This is taken right from the Arcane Wonders website to describe Onitama, which is known as an abstract strategy game that, at first glance, looks a little bit similar to its older, more popular cousin, chess. The board is shrunk down to a 5x5 grid, and rather than having a myriad of different pieces with their own ways to move and interact, we simply have one king, or in this setting, the master, and 4 other pawns, which are the monk followers. Now, to win, there are 2 ways of victory. The first, called the Way of the Stone, is achieved by capturing your opponent's master, again akin to chess. And the second, the Way of the Stream, is achieved by having your master travel across the board to land in your opponent's temple arch space. So we can make many similarities between Onitama and chess. We have the grid-like board, we have the pawns that are on the table, and the win-like conditions. It may just seem like a smaller version of chess, but what will set Onitama apart specifically is the way that you move your pawns. After setting up, there will be 5 cards that are dealt into the game, 2 for each player, and 1 final card that will reveal which player will start, and that will be set off to the side briefly. Now, each of these cards will also show a grid with some spaces highlighted, the yellow space representing where your pawn is, and the green spaces to show how you can move your pawns. On your turn, you will choose one of these cards and then decide which pawn to play and where to place them. Again, only moving them wherever the card will allow for them to be moved. But be careful, because whatever card you used for your movement, you will then replace it with the card that is on the side, leaving it for your opponent to use in the future. This then adds a hand management aspect into the game, as you have to watch out that the cards you are using to move your pieces won't give your opponent a chance to set themselves up in a better position to win. Due to the cyclical nature of the cards, you're not just planning out how you are going to move your own pawns, but also the movement options you are giving your opponent. And because there are 16 different moving cards and you only get to play with 5 of them, which is a lot of potential card combinations, 524,160 to be exact. each game is going to feel a little bit unique and different in how its strategy is developed. And that's it in regards to gameplay. Like chess, Onitama has a potentially high ceiling in regards to some serious strategic gameplay. But unlike chess, and probably my favorite part about Onitama, is the fact that it is more accessible in every way. I mean, the board is smaller, you have fewer pawns that you have to worry about, and not only that, each of the pawns don't have their own unique moveset, and the game itself is much shorter than its older counterpart. I mean, I could teach a game of Onitama and play, and we would be done within half an hour. Whereas with chess, if I were to go over teaching the rules of chess and how each player moves and actually playing a game with that person on the same round, we'd be there for hours potentially. Now, at the beginning of this review, I had mentioned that the entire app is completely free. It's not a trial version, and it's not set up where you can only play certain game modes unless you pay a fee. It is completely free to get into. However, there are a couple of in-app purchases that are in this game. One of these purchases actually changing the gameplay a little bit, and the other one being a futuristic cosmetic skin that changes the game pieces and the board. You can also get an additional medieval cosmetic skin for free if you have an Asmodee digital login. In regards to the one purchase that gives you a bit more gameplay, it is simply another deck of 16 cards to add even more variety and combinations to play with. So it's not essential unless you want to have over 24 million different potential card combinations. So if you like chess or abstract strategy games and you want to try something a little bit different, or if you're just the type who wants a simple strategic game that is both easy to play and yet has a potentially high ceiling of skill for those who want to dive deep into it, this is a fantastic game to add to your library with replayability off the charts, what with its many different card combinations. Even as a filler game, this is something that you could get into, play for 15 minutes, and then you can go back to your regular life. And win or lose, which I find myself doing often, I always come back for yet another chance to test out my wit against my opponent. But if you are the type who is looking for a theme in their board game with mechanics that enrich that theme, or perhaps if you are the type who is looking for an epic story with a build-up as you go along that leads to this exciting conclusion of whether you've won or lost, this game may not be for you. I mean, as an abstract game, theme isn't a mainstay in this genre. And not only that, rather than this epic story that's going on over time, this game instead opts to give you an opponent a simple test of wits. It is at this juncture that we now look to the app implementation, and right off the bat, the art style and the music in the background is good. It's not like there is a major wow factor to either, but it does its job in lending itself to getting you into the theme that is there, and everything does look visually pleasing. The colors used as well as the UI also help in terms of graphic design, as everything can be seen clearly and is easy to understand, from the sun shifting to the side of the active player, to the distinct patterns that show where you can move your pawn, to the proportion of the cards and the board. Small things like this really add to making the game just that much easier to understand. It also responds exceedingly well. It does a good job at detecting what you have touched and making the experience as smooth as possible. A small thing to note is that there is no confirm button or undo for those that like having those small features, but for such a small game as this, where it is up to you to properly plan, it's not something I personally mind at all. The tutorial also does a great job at teaching as well, teaching both through slides but also adding an interaction aspect that helps you to understand it well, as it walks you through the game step by step, outlining everything you need to know to get going. It makes such an accessible game that much easier to get into, to the point where I handed this game to my wife and she went through the tutorial and proceeded to beat me on her first try against someone who has been playing this game for a couple of months. Yeah, I kind of suck at this. Finally, there are the solo and multiplayer aspects. For solo play, there are 3 AIs ranging from for beginners to tough to beat, and let me tell you, the descriptions they have there are spot on. The easiest difficulty is easy as stated. The medium difficulty, which is about where I'm at, or maybe a little bit less in my skill, is nicely balanced, and the hard difficulty is just plain nuts. But wherever you are at with your strategic ability, Onitama provides a nice range in regards to the AI that they provide. As far as multiplayer goes, once again, the game is very responsive and works well. If you have other people around that you can play with, the pass and play works wonderfully as you set up the game almost as though you're playing with the physical version, where you can sit across from each other and get to playing. I also found that playing a game online was smooth as butter, whether you were playing with buddies or trying a quick game. I noticed no hiccups in getting everything set up and playing through the game online when I had tested it out. It even has a rank system for those who want to try their hand at climbing to the top. At the end of the day, Onitama is a fantastic abstract strategy game, and the app implementation only makes it more accessible. I mean, it is easy to play and to learn. It offers some rewarding strategic gameplay, and on top of all of that, it is completely free to get into. While it may not be this grand epic story, Onitama does a fantastic job at giving you a short little battle of wits between you and your opponent that is easy to get into. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to do a little bit more training so I can be ready to take on the master sensei in this family, my wife.